All right, guys, welcome to the first unit. The first lesson of our internet unit. This is a pretty fun one that we talk about every single year. Usually kids get excited. The internet's a pretty crazy thing. The first thing we wanted to look at, and again, this would have been a little different in class, but just we've talked about how we represent all these images and things like this, and I wanted to know how we share this in real life. Most people would say, you guys, I send a text message, I screenshot something, I send a picture. Most old people might say that I email something, but along the lines, all of us are using the same thing to send and receive these messages, which is the internet these days. So you had to put this on. I was questioning what you thought the internet was right now. Take a second, even pause the video, and just think, what do you know about the internet? What are the physical components of it? Take a baseline measurement of where you are and how you think the internet works. That's also a fun one. If you have questions, write those down. We can get those addressed when we come back the next day. Please watch this video. So these notes are linked on the calendar and in Schoology. Watch up to the first minute 30. Usually some pretty funny things about what people think the internet actually is. Take a look at that. But for this, in order to process the internet, we need to talk about web browsers. A web browser is something you're familiar with on your iPads, your phones, your computers at home, the computers at school. They're just a program that we use to view what's on the World Wide Web. So we have Google Chrome, Firefox, Safari, you name them. And there's a ton of them out there now. You guys use them on a regular basis, like I mentioned before. They also all need some sort of a URL to find where you'd like to go on the internet. This is typically just the www.blah.com, .org, .net, .edu, whatever those are. We'll talk a little bit more in depth about those later. But these URLs are just kind of like web addresses. That's all that they really are at the end of the day. There's this system of hierarchy. For example, if you just use the standard drive.google.com, you have a bunch of levels of domains. And so what we look at is the last three after the .net, .org, any of those. Those are usually the top level domains. From there, we go to the single domain, which is kind of like the name of, I guess, the main website that you are at. Typically, there's a subdomain. What part of that website are you on? And then the protocol that we use, we'll jump into that a little bit later on in some notes. There's a difference between HTTP and HTTPS, something very important for you guys to figure out in a little bit. But the nice thing about this internet is it's just changed the lives for everybody around the world. Approximately, weirdly, only 60% of the population has access to the internet from 2001. We're looking to get an updated stat on that, but I think that's something that most people would overlook, especially coming from the United States, where we would assume that you have the internet most anywhere that you can go around here, minus a couple little hotspots you can't get any service. There is that significant digital divide, though, between the rich and the poor. And I always think of the things like here at Friend, we always have had access to the internet. We always have iPads. These are expensive devices, and some districts and some families are not as fortunate as others and aren't able to utilize these devices as often. 78% usually have access to mobile phones. Again, that number is growing typically with the amount of mobile phones made these days. And then what was really nice is that it helped us use text messages as well, in a sense, to help us kind of branch out to the developing worlds. They were really funny. Kind of like tweets, you were limited to the number of characters you could send before. Nowadays, with the use of the internet, unlimited size texts, whatever you guys want to use for those. This is a good one. I'd like you guys to pause the video again, take a look at these notes, this video about how the internet actually kind of works in a sense with physical components. And you're back. So let's talk mediums of transmission. From the video, we understand we're sending a bunch of zeros and ones back and forth at the speed of electricity, which is fast. But all these zeros and ones need to be sent some way, somehow, and they're either done with copper wires, in which there's a current. That is, if the current is on, it's a 1. If it's off, it's a 0. We have these things called fiber optic cables, which use light If the light is shining, it is on. If the light is shining, it's off. And then radio waves are also some fun ones to look at, where we talk about how frequent they come, or we talk about how the amplitude, math term there for you guys, once that amplitude is reached, whether those are on, offs, zeros, ones, that kind of things. There are pros and cons to all of these different types of things. These are important to note the difference of. Copper wires are what you typically would call Ethernet cables. Most of you guys actually probably utilize these at your house at some point in time, and what those are is they're very cheap. They are flexible. The problem is that they do not have a strong signal for long distances. A lot of times from one corner of the building to the other corner of the building, there could be enough distance to actually lose the ability to transfer information. So they're cheap, they're flexible, they're bendable, they just don't go very far. Then we have optic cables, like fiber optic cables. These are extremely fast. They use the speed of light, which is the fastest thing that we know. There is absolutely no signal loss. The problem is that they are expensive, they're fragile, they are typically made of glass or fiber, so they're not very bendable at all. So there's a lot of good things, fast internet, a lot of bad things, fragility. And then there's such things as wireless networks, which you guys know as Wi-Fi, anything your cellular service gets. I think it's 5G, LTE, 5G plus. I don't know what we're at, like 10G now, probably something like that. Bluetooth is another one, where we're using radio waves to actually transfer these things out. The pros of this, we are not connected to anything. You notice from all the other ones, we had to have some sort of a wire. The bad news is that, as you guys probably know, you can't travel much farther outside your house without losing the signal that we have here. So we need these spots to go everywhere. And then some words that you're going to need to know about the internet, how we send these zeros and ones. How fast do they go? How many zeros and ones are there? How long does it take? These are all questions that are answered with these three vocabulary words. The first one's going to be called bit rate, and I think this one's the most fundamental. It's the rate at which bits are sent, bit rate. And it's how fast are zeros and ones coming out of my computer. That's the thing I want you to think about, is if you can spit out more zeros and ones in the same amount of time than someone else does, you are in turn sending more information or making your internet, in a sense, faster. This, we try to use these analogies with water. This is like almost the speed at which the water is coming out of a hose, is kind of the sense of how much you want to think that would work there. The bandwidth is kind of the maximum bit rate connection that you can have. So your bits can come out at different speeds at different times. And it's just a matter of, hey, at some point in time, I'm going to hit the maximum. I almost think of this as like the max capacity of what an output is for something. And this is, again, just something that you buy when you go to Comcast. Like when I think right now I have 100 megabits per second is the plan that I bought. Well, that means that I can't get above 100. And honestly, usually you don't get really close to that anyways. But that's what a bit or a band. I'm sorry, that is what a bandwidth is for you. And then I always think about that as like hey, if you turn your faucet on full speed, you can't get much more water coming out of it than that right there. And the last one is latency. This is the time it takes a packet of information to be delivered to its sender. So that is another thing. It's not just how fast they come out of your computer, but it's how fast are they then sent, right? If they're coming out of my computer super fast, but I put them on a turtle to get to my friend's house, that's still going to be, he's going to end up with a million turtles all at once, but it's going to take 5 days for him to get there. So the latency is something that we can test actually using a ping test, which is pretty fun. But between these three, what's really important is to understand how they all can flow together. So I want you to describe the following scenarios as to how good or bad they are. And I would like you guys to pause this really quickly and find like a neighbor or somebody who can. I want to go backwards. Oh no, oh no. Oh no, guys, how do I do this? How do I go backwards? I don't think I can. Oh no. What? Oh my gosh. It's working. Okay. Whew. Got scared there for a second. Technology had failed me. Pause this video. Look at someone to the left or right of you, and I want you guys to discuss these real quick together. And you're back. So let's talk about it. Low bit rate, low latency. This is something that usually confuses some people. You actually want low latency. That means that it is taking little amount of time for your zeros and ones to travel, whereas high latency is meaning it's taking the slow lanes to get there. So when we look at the speed of the internet, the fastest of these scenarios would be the second one, where I want a high bit rate. I want my zeros and ones pumping out of my computer as fast as they can. And I want them getting to their end destination as fast as possible with the minimal amount of time. So the second one is the best case scenario. The worst case scenario is actually the third one. You are sending zeros and ones out of your computer slower, and they're taking slower to get to their end destination. The other two, it's a combination of, they're somewhere in the middle. Hard to discuss the two between them. But this is what I want you guys to do now. Once you get to this point, I want you guys to actually open up the lesson that we have for today in code.org, which should be, if you look at it, it's the internet lesson that we have. And there should be one that is called Welcome to the Internet. And what I want you to do is I want you to log in, and I want you to find somebody else in the classroom. It doesn't even have to be somebody who is next to you, somebody else who's this far in the notes. And I want you to log on to the internet simulator, and I want you to join whoever's in that lobby. It's going to sound really weird that we're doing that, but it will make sense when you get there. You are going to log in, click on this particular activity. When you do, it'll put you in a lobby like you see on the right-hand side. And from there, you guys are going to join in together and just play around and see how this internet simulator works. It's pretty fun. What you guys do is on the left-hand side here, you can see that you can send some things. I'm going to let you guys just mess around with it and play and see what you guys can have fun with real quick. I wish I was there to demo it, but I can't. Question I also have for you guys once you finish this, answer these two questions for me. How is this simulator similar to the internet that we have in real life? And how do you think it's also different from that one? Once finished, there is the rest of this video that I want you to watch. So from 1 minute 30 all the way to the end, watch this video for me. And last but not least, ladies and gentlemen, all I need you guys to do is actually finish MC number 23 for me once you are finished. So go through these notes, play with that internet simulator. Hopefully that is going to work for us while I'm not here. And then MC number 23. If for some reason the simulator doesn't work while I'm not there, we can go ahead and have a little bit of fun with it tomorrow when I get back. Take care, ladies and gentlemen. Have yourselves a good one. We'll see you.